Last week I made a video on music videos and I answered a few questions about making music videos, and then I finished it with a question: should I make a series on DIY music videos? Should I make a series helping you to make your own music videos? And everybody said yeah. So this is what this is going to be. So this first episode is just going to be equipment. What do you need, ideally, to make a music video? Really, there's not much that you actually need. You could get away with making a pretty decent music video with just your phone. That's nowadays, phones are good enough, they've got good cameras on. You could make a music video with just your phone. Editing would be a problem, but we'll get to that. If you have just a phone, totally doable, we can work with that. If not, a DSLR, if you do have a DSLR camera, or an actual film camera, if you happen to have one, perfect, that's great. It's worth noting that if you are using a DSLR, the more lenses, the better. Not necessarily get a load of shit lenses, but if you were thinking about getting a DSLR and had a bit of a budget, rather than paying a lot of money for a DSLR and a lens, you might be better off paying half that money for your DSLR and then using the rest of the money to get a few lenses so that you can get different types of shots. So you can have some wide angle, some more like depth of field kind of shots or whatever, like get the background a bit blurry. I'm not going to do a detailed explanation of what does and doesn't work and all that kind of stuff, because there are videos that already exist out there for it. If you are interested in getting a proper camera to make these music videos, have a look around on YouTube. There's loads of stuff that could help you. In terms of equipment, other than the obvious things that you're going to need to make the video, the biggest thing that I would recommend you have if you have a little bit of a budget is get yourself some lighting. The type of lighting that you get will differ depending on what you want to use it for. So for example, we own a little ring light. We used this in a video that we shot in an abandoned building, and we used it because it was the only light that we could carry. Like, we could actually physically carry this and move with the subject. Not ideal for most video shoots. It's only small and it's not that powerful compared to proper lights. The other lights that I use to shoot videos with are some red headlamps and some Beefy. They're in a case about this big that just sat there. I used it, for example, for this video. It's in the background. We just used that one light and lit it from behind. They have been super, super helpful. There's a lot that you can do creatively with lighting to get the kind of look that you want. Really, you can have a 1 out of 10 video, a really shit video, and then bring in some lights and light it right, and it can make it into like a 10 out of 10 video. Lighting is a very, very big part in taking something that looks a little bit amateur and making it into something that looks professional. Lighting will bridge that gap because there is so much that you can change in terms of the look of something just with the lighting. And I think it's something that gets missed out quite a lot. There are a lot of people who are like, oh, how did you get this shot? This shot looks really good in this film. I'm going to get all of the camera equipment and the lenses to recreate this really cool shot, and then they light it using just sunlight coming through a blind in a room, and it looks shit. Because you don't think about lighting very often. So I'm making you aware of this now. Think about lighting because it's really important. Other essential piece of equipment that you need is video editing software. I'm not going to go into detail about which ones you should get, which are better, which I would recommend or whatever. I use Premiere. If you can get a hold of Premiere Pro, do.
What's Movie Maker like?
Oh, Movie Maker's amazing. Final Cut Pro. I've never used Final Cut, but loads of people use it. And Sony Vegas, which I started and learnt video editing on, and then I transitioned over to Premiere. Those three programs seem to be the top three in terms of video editing, so if you can get your hands on one of those, do. Really, any video editing software that will let you do multi-track editing will do perfectly fine. That's why Windows Movie Maker is particularly shit, because you can only edit one video track at a time, which is just, you just can't do a music video like that. Well, you could, but it'd take you hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. I'm not going to go into any more detail than that. Each have their own little things that they're better at. Each are differently priced. So look into it yourself if you are looking into getting video editing software. Pick the one that you think would be best for you. If you have anything else going on, like you make films or whatever, you probably already know what you kind of want anyway. So yeah, one of those three, I will link to them all in the description. In fact, I'll do that with all the equipment that I'm mentioning now. I will link to in the description. So if you are interested in getting a specific thing that I talk about, there'll be a link there for you. In terms of extra equipment that you may need for shooting a music video, a tripod is the obvious one. I personally don't really like using a tripod.
He says using a tripod.
Using a tripod now, and I'd use it for specific things in terms of filmmaking, but I think for music videos it's really uninteresting. I think if you want something to have the energy that music has, Using a tripod just completely takes it away. There are specific instances where I have used tripods, for example, here. On the whole, I don't use a tripod. If you want to use a tripod, get yourself a tripod. The thing that I use the most, which is totally, you do not have to use this ever, but I use a stabilizer. So the basis of a stabilizer is if you're holding a camera, there's little hand movements and little kind of twitches that your body does that really don't look good on camera. A stabilizer has a mechanism, like a gimbal mechanism, where the movements of your hand are kind of negated by the gimbal mechanism, which means that the camera itself isn't affected by the little twitches that your hands will do, which means that you get a smoother shot. So you can get a shot like this that looks super smooth, whereas if you did that just with your hands, you would... Especially with walking, you've got no chance of getting a shot that smooth. The other piece of equipment that I use, and I've not used it very often to be fair, using this piece of equipment is very specific to the shot that you want to get. But I also own a slider, which is like a tripod that moves along a track, basically. If there's a very specific thing where you want to get a shot here and you want it to move to here, rather than trying to move it with your hand and again getting all that kind of shakiness that your hands have, having it just on a little track allows you to perfectly move from one area to another. Of all the things that I've said in this video, this is probably the one that you really don't need at all, ever, unless you want that specific type of shot, because honestly, you can nail a really good music video with none of this equipment. You could you just use your phone and you could get a really good video, provided you kind of know what you're doing. If you're doing a shoot where you're miming to a song, you might want the drummer to have a headphone in so that it can hear the track itself, because obviously you need to be miming to the song, not just winging it and just doing it at your own time. It needs to be perfectly in time. If you were doing, for example, walking down a street and it's just going to be the singer singing to a camera, you're going to want something like a Bluetooth speaker so that everyone can hear and the camera can hear what you're actually miming to. It might not feel all that important having the camera being able to listen to what you're listening to, but there are a few tricks that you can do to synchronize footage with audio if the camera is actually listening. So I'll show you that in a later episode, but if you can shoot and make your camera listen to the thing that you're listening to, do it, because it's really handy to have. That's it. If you've got an idea and you've got this equipment, you could totally make a music video. So next week I will do a video where I'm going to show you the ins and outs of kind of shooting a performance video. So if you want to see our best of playlist, click on the screen right now and go to our best of playlist. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next week.
Ah, fuck.
Joe just punched the door.